All right, here we go with question number 6 from 2014. Since we are coming up on the actual AP test, from here on out, I'm going to try to make some more of these videos, but I know we're running out of time, so I'll put some optional things up just to give you a chance to try some last minute questions if you feel like there's an area that you're either uncomfortable with or you just want to have more examples so you have a bigger list of things you can use when you take the test. So question 6 came from chapter 6. It was all a slope field question. I think every single part of it I would have come from chapter 6, which is not something that was done in any other part of 2014 questions. So part A, they gave you, usually they ask you to draw a slope field or they ask you to interpret slope field. This one, they actually ask you to draw a curve on a slope field. I will be honest, when I first went to do this one, I started it and I really was not sure how high to go or how low to go. I highly doubt they're going to make you draw something on the actual test because to me, that would be too hard to handle the technology. And even though I want you guys to take pictures of your work and do it by hand, there may still be students around the country that want to do want to work with the technology. So I would say when you're grading this, be very lenient on yourself. If you had something closer, good. Essentially, what you're doing is you're going through the 0.01, which is right up here on the y-axis, and you're just trying to, like, I called it like following the wave when we did it in class, just kind of using that as like a guide rail to draw it. So if you drew something that has this shape, give yourself a point. They're pretend magical points anyway. So here's what they said, and they really didn't give much other than their picture is a lot prettier than mine. They drew a picture and said, if you drew a solution curve, you get a point. So again, give yourself a point. So then going back to part B wanted you to write a tangent line equation. Super common question. At some point on the AP test, you're going to be writing a tangent line. I'm just not sure what the format will be as far as what's given. So for part B, you need a slope, which is going to come from putting the 0.01 into your derivative. So here's your derivative. You put 1 in for y, so you get 3 minus 1, which is 2. The cosine of 0 you should know is 1. So you end up getting a 2 times 1, so a slope of 2. You have your point, so you can write it in point slope. You can write it in slope intercept. I actually wrote both. Either one would be fine. And then you're going to use that to put in 0.2 for x and to make that approximation. So you're going to put 2.2 in where the x is, and you should get 1.4. So as far as scoring, I believe they made this 2 points. 1 point for the tangent line in any format, point slope, slope intercept, anything like that. And then 1 point for the approximation of 1.4. Part C is the separate and integrate. It is definitely the part that has the most points. It's also the part that you can make a lot of little mistakes that I want to caution you on. There's a couple very specific ones I want to talk about. So the first is make sure you separate it. Until you get your y's with your dy and your x's with your dx, they won't even grade it any further unless you do that separation. So that should be step 1, which is right here. And then step 2, here's the first place I think it's easy to make a mistake. On the y side, when you integrate that, it is a u sub. It's a very short u sub. U is going to be your denominator, 3 minus y. The derivative of that, the du, is -1, which means you should have a negative adjustment. And I put little stars around it because I just expect this to be a place that people make a little mistake. So when you integrate it, it is a du over u, but it has a negative adjustment. So it's a negative natural log of 3 minus y. The other easy place to make a mistake is remembering how to derive sine and cosine, which one's positive, which one's negative, and the integration and all of that. The integral of cosine is positive sine. Now, when it comes time to simplify it, here's my advice. I would get rid of this negative on this side. I do not want anything in front of a natural log just because it makes it harder to simplify. So I would divide or multiply the negative on this side to make the sign negative. You don't have to make your c negative. Whether it's positive or negative, it's still a constant. You have a choice here. You can find c right away or you can exponentiate it. I don't think either way is like way harder than the other. I like to exponentiate first if this natural log's by itself. Just allows it to look a little cleaner. So when I exponentiate it, here's another common mistake. When you exponentiate this x side, the c is going to become the coefficient of the e. So it's going to look like this. When you exponentiate on the y side, the e and the ln will cancel and you're just left with 3 minus y. And the absolute value are not going to be necessary. I dropped them at this point. So here's my exponentiated version. Then you need to find your c value if you didn't do it earlier. I like doing it in this order. So you're going to put 1 in for y, giving you 2 on this side. You're going to put 0 in for x. The sign of 0 is 0. So you'll get e to the 0, which is 1. So you get your c value to be 2. So I put that 2 back in. And then your last step is you have to get y by itself. And the reason you know that is from the directions. When they say find y equals f of x, that means your final answer has to be y equals and all the x's have to be on the other side. So to do this, you could kind of move around a couple different ways. I decided to subtract the 2e to the negative sine x on this side and then add y to this side. So I kind of did a flip-flopping of terms. As long as y is by itself, it doesn't matter the order that you write the terms on this side. So for scoring, this is going to be heavily scored compared to the other parts. You get 1 point for separating. Again, if you don't separate, they always put this note, they're not going to continue grading. You get 2 for integrating, which is good because the integrals are a little tougher here, especially the y side with that negative adjustment, but even remembering that cosine has a positive integral. And then you get 1 point for having and using your constant of integration, meaning you have your plus c, you know you should find it. And then that next step, these two steps are kind of tied together. Not only do you have your plus c, but you use your initial condition to find your c. They actually found c sooner. They did it, and I was considering doing this, and then I decided to exponentiate it. So they found their c sooner and then simplified. I thought it was easier to exponentiate and then find c. You would not need to show why you got rid of the absolute value bars. The idea that you don't get a natural log of a negative is enough to know those bars can go away. And then here's the final answer. You do not have to put this note. That is more just to make sure they're mathematically correct. And then your last point is, did you get y by itself? And you'll always see the scoring here. If you don't have a plus c, don't mention it in any way, the most you can get is the first 3 points. If you don't separate, they won't give you any credit for this. So that was the last question in 2014. So at this point, you should be able to go through 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you haven't watched some of those previous videos, go ahead and watch that and score all 4 of those. Your total score should be out of 36 because you have 4 times 9. Again, I'm looking for you to average around 4 or 5 a question. So some of these scores I'm seeing come in are a little higher than what I think you would get in a normal setting. So just, again, I'm not looking for perfection. If you tell me you got 3 right on each one, if you got 5 right on each one, I'm going to give you the same points. So I'm going to send a scoring form out. I want you to go ahead and fill that in just so I can see that you've done it, you kept score, and I can tell how you've done. And then I'm going to continue looking for questions just to give you some optional work so that when May 12th comes, and it's going to be here soon, you feel like you've done enough practice on all the different topics. So that's it for now. Look for the scoring form. Talk to you later.